Okay, ready? All right, flag salute. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call? Oh, that's before roll call.
Tom Collins, Clem Wozleski, Rich Patterson, Mike Cristaldi, Jim Galantino.
Here.
Margaret Gubernalti, Craig Palmisano, Despina Hess, Remy Pelosi.
Here.
Joe DiGirolamo,
Here.
Ron Grupo. Mike Richmond.
Here. Okay, this meeting is being held in accordance with due public notice thereof and pursuant to the New Jersey State Sunshine Law. Notice of this meeting was advertised in the press, and a copy of same has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building. All applicants are hereby advised that should you receive board approval tonight, you must come forward and sign a form which informs you regarding the timing of receiving building permits and mercantile licenses. At the end of your case tonight, please see the board administrator to sign the 2 information sheets. And then we're going to have approval of minutes, September 27th, 2018. Approval of decisions and resolutions, number 40-218, consistency report on
Mike.
board.
Can we have a motion for approval of minutes?
Oh, yeah. Can we get a motion for approval of minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now we do the
Okay.
DNRs.
Number 40-218, 2018, consistency report on ordinance number 24-2018, 41-2018, Michael and Debbie Silverman, 42-2018, 100 North Decatur LLC, number 43-218, Louis Freed.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed?
Okay. So our first case tonight is, you want to say something?
Yeah, you can announce. The first case is 301 North Vendome Avenue, LLC. Just before we get started, just some preliminary matters. This case was initially scheduled back in September. It's my understanding it was not noticed for, but prior to being noticed for, I received a letter from Sean Byrne, who's an attorney representing a woman named Kathleen Mullins. And it's my understanding, and the applicant's attorney, and maybe someone else will, fill in and correct me if I'm wrong, but the owner of the property is an entity called 301 North Vendome LLC. There's 2 members of that LLC. This woman, Kathleen Mullins, who's represented by Mr. Burns, has some ongoing litigation in the Superior Court. There's a dispute over title to the property. The deed, as we sit here today, is in 301 North Vendome LLC, and that's the applicant. So Mr. Burns' letter of September 7th, 2018, it was to me, copied to Scott Abbott, Mr. McLarnon, Joanna. He basically indicates he represents Ms. Mullins, and he objected strongly to any applications being made regarding the property before our board or for any demolition permit applications being made. It was communicated to Mr. Byrne that we would, as a courtesy, put the matter off 30 days till tonight, and in the meantime, he needs to apply to the Superior Court and bring us a court order that says that we can't go forward with this. We have an application with an owner of property. There's a dispute to title in Superior Court. That's not really our business, but as a courtesy, we did put it off. I suggested to Mr. Balanson, who was the attorney at the time, that he consent to that, and he did. In the meantime, Mr. Byrne apparently filed what's called an order to show cause with the Superior Court, seeking to prevent us from going forward. And I have an order dated October 22nd, 2018, which that'll be part of the record. We'll make Mr. Byrne's letter of September 7th part of the record. And it's from the Honorable Michael Blee, where he basically denies that. He says, plaintiff, which is this Ms. Mullins, who's represented by Mr. Burns, requests to prohibit defendant, which is the applicant, from demolishing, defacing, or altering in any way, shape, or form the dwelling at 301 North Vendome Avenue. Is hereby denied for the reasons set forth on the record. Number two, plaintiffs request the defendant withdraw any and all current and proposed applications of any kind filed with the City of Margate in regards to the building and property located at 301 North Vendome Avenue. Is hereby denied for the reasons stated on the record. Again, signed by the Honorable Michael Blee. And then that's dated October 22nd. The next day, there is an email from Mr. Byrne, the attorney, to Mr. Abbott, who's our city solicitor, and I'll just read that into the record, where he basically concedes, Mr. Abbott, unfortunately, I was unable to sustain my burden to protect the property from being demolished. Judge Blee has denied my application. My client, Kathleen Mullins, will be at the meeting to argue against it going forward, but there's nothing legally preventing Mr. Amendolia, who's one of the members of the applicant, from moving forward with his application for variances. I wish to thank you and all involved for extending to me the courtesy of adjourning this matter until it was heard. Respectfully, Sean P. Byrne. In light of that, the matter is going to go forward tonight. If anyone wants to be heard, apparently Ms. Mullins may be here and wants to be heard on that, or if anyone else wants to be heard on that preliminary issue, or wants to put anything on the record, come up now and we'll swear you in, and we'll take it from there. Okay, Mr. Palmisano is recusing himself, but does anyone want to be heard? You come up, state your name and your address, and I'll swear you in.
My name is Kathleen Mullins. I
Okay.
am, good evening, everyone.
And your address?
My address is Post Office Box 13 in Summers Point, New Jersey, 08244.
Okay, I mean, you heard what I said initially,
Yes.
but, so, we might limit you, but go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. As you stated, my name is Kathleen Mullins. I am an owner of the property of 301 North Vendome Avenue, and I am a current partner in the 301 North Vendome LLC. At this time, both the Vendome Avenue property and the agreement regarding the development of that property are the subject of a lawsuit scheduled to be heard in the New Jersey Superior Court Chancery Division in December of this year, the first week in December. As a partner in this project, I have not been consulted, informed, or advised on any decisions pertaining to the project. I have not seen any plans, I have not seen any budgets, drawings, or agreements with potential contractors or consultants to support the financial viability of the contract, or of the project. I have a significant financial stake in this process by having provided the property itself, and the timing of this request for a variance is such that if granted, the project would be well underway before the facts and evidence are able to be presented to the court and they make their decisions. Additionally, there are potential issues with the present mortgage lender. Even beyond December date, there could be continuing financial issues resulting from the result of this transaction. I am asking for these reasons that the board suspend the application until the Superior Court has had the opportunity to establish legal ownership of the property and make a determination on the project.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Again, we have a court order allowing this matter to go forward. She wanted to put an objection on the record. That's fine. As she was speaking, I also flipped through, and Eric, I'm going to turn it over to you now, or Mr. Goldstein, but I did see the corporate disclosure statement. It only lists Mr. Amendola for whatever, and I'll just turn it over to you. But
So again, respectfully, this is not a court of law, and we're not asking you to make a decision of law. We're asking you to act solely on a meritorious application that's been presented. Whatever issues have arisen or will continue to arise will be addressed by Judge Blee. The issues are such that they have been addressed by Judge Blee. What this woman had just indicated has already been denied by the court. So unless there's an meritorious objection to the application. Side yard setbacks aren't correct, this isn't right, doesn't fit on the lot properly. This is the incorrect forum for the arguments that she's placed before you. I don't know what's going on between them or not between them as partners, and frankly, I don't care. What we're here to do is to decide whether or not, under the New Jersey Municipal Land Use Law and Margate Zoning Code, this application is worthy under the hardship criteria to get the variances that we've asked for. So respectfully, that statement that was made is a distraction. It's moot because it doesn't address what we're here to do. Now, if someone has an objection, if a neighbor's here and says, well, I don't like the way this house looks, or I don't like, this being too close to mine, different story, but we're not here to air our personal grievances, one party against another, and respectfully, I don't think the board has any authority to make that decision anyway. So we're prepared to go forward, but we don't want any objections that have nothing to do with the actual merits of the application to interfere with what the board says on an up or down, yes or no vote. And I assume the board will take that into consideration in making its decision.
Okay, so, yeah, we're going to go forward.
And
Alright.
the board's, Mr. Goldstein's correct. The board should focus on land use matters. I just wanted the record to be clear, and I don't want to silence anyone from stating what they needed to say. I think at this point, turn it over to Mr. McLaren. I'll swear for your report. Are you ready? Mr. McLaren, do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thanks.
Use your mic.
Thank you, Board Chairman and Board members. My report is based on an application of 301 North Benham Avenue, LLC, in the FEMA Zone AE9, Elevation 9. The zoning information with the height in the reference. I've identified a hardship variance and plus substantial benefit variance. The background is as follows. The applicant is seeking relief from the ordinances of the City of Margate in order to construct a new single-family dwelling in the S40 zone with garage parking below the main house, which allows for additional height and promotes open space. The lot has an existing dwelling on it, making it a buildable lot as per the ordinance, even though the lot width and areas are less than what is required. So the zoning chart is on page 1 and page 2. The documents reviewed are at the bottom of page 2. Page 3, section 3, variances required are as follows. Lot area, whereas 4,000 square feet is a required minimum lot area within the S40 zone, and 640 square feet exists and is proposed. No adjacent vacant land is available to add on to this property. Variance number 2 identified as lot width, whereas 50 feet is required minimum lot width within the S40 zone, and 33 feet exists and is proposed. Again, there is no adjacent vacant land available to add on to this property to make it conform or make it less non-conforming. And again, these are existing non-conformities that in the application. The third variance required is a front yard setback to the deck, whereas 15.8 feet is the calculated prevailing setback, and 11.5 feet is proposed. The fourth one is combined side yard setback, whereas the required minimum combined side yard setback is 12.2 feet and 11 feet is proposed. Third floor deck is the fifth variance, whereas no third floor decks are permitted at this location and one is being proposed. Item number 6, or variance number 6, is pool equipment setback, whereas 10 feet is a minimum setback required for side yards, 5 feet for rear yards, and approximately 5.17 feet is proposed, same as the side yard shown on the site plan. Waivers requested are as follows from the checklist. Item 1.A, copy of an area map showing all lots within 200 feet of the property. My comments are as follows. Again, I mentioned the lot area, the front yard setback, the combined side yard setback. Could be viewed as a hardship. Actually, 1, 2, and 3 are hardship variances. 5, the third floor deck is proposed, and third floor decks are not permitted, only on waterfront lots and lots oceanward of Atlantic Avenue, as per our revised land use ordinance from last month. The location of the pool equipment requires a setback variance for side yard encroachment of 5 feet where 10 feet is required. I believe that the applicant would agree that this variance could be removed by moving the pool equipment over, unless they want to seek that variance. Also, comment number 7, the architect could take advantage of the new zoning ordinances and get an extra 6 inches of headroom in the garage if he chooses to do so and still be in compliance with the ordinance. All landscape coverages exceed minimum required even with a proposed pool on an undersized lot. All landscape trees and shrubs requirements will be met. Adequate storage is being met without a detached garage and shed. The internal entryway provides additional front yard open space. Positive, negative criteria will need to be satisfied for the board. For variance relief and waiver relief, the following pertains. As you can see, my recommendations. Again, I see no detriment into granting the waiver request of the 200-foot area map. And actually, in my report, the tax map almost provides the same information required in the checklist. One request is no utility valves or meters shall be located within a public sidewalk or driveways. That concludes my report.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, Eric Goldstein on behalf of the applicant, 301 North Vendome LLC. In following up on Mr. McLaurin's report, a few things just to make specific note of. We talk about hardships a lot, and this really is a classic hardship case. We've got a buildable lot with 33 feet of frontage where 50 is required. So it's pretty substantially undersized. And lot area of 2640 where 4,000 square feet is required. So what we're talking about is trying to squeeze in as nice a house as possible on a fairly narrow and not such a deep lot. So when we look at what variances really come into play here, there's nothing we can do about lot area or lot width. It's a buildable lot of record, and those, as Mr. McLaurin pointed out, do not allow us to obtain more land on any side. With regard to the front yard setback where the 15 feet is required, existing is 5. It's going to increase an additional 6.5 feet. So the finished product will be better than it is now. Same thing for combined yard setback, even though it's minimal. We're talking 12.2 required, existing 10.8, proposed 11, which is to some benefit, but not much of a difference from what is required. And then we have the third floor deck and the pool equipment, which we'll obviously discuss with Mr. Weiss's testimony. But when we're focusing on the construction of the house, please keep in mind, this truly is a hardship case based upon the constraints of this existing lot. And I know a lot of times we come before you and we talk about hardships, but they may or may not actually be hardships. This, by law and in practice, qualifies as a hardship. So, Mr. Weiss, do you mind please coming up and being sworn and walking us through your plan? We'll go through the variances one by one.
Mr. Weiss, can you state your name and business address, please?
Peter Weiss, 101 North Washington Avenue, Margate.
Do you
Mr.
swear or
Weiss,
affirm the testimony you're about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thanks.
just for the record, Mr. Weiss, you are a licensed professional architect from the state of New Jersey, correct?
Yes,
And you've testified before this board on many occasions, correct?
yes,
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Manos, we just asked that Mr. Weiss be accepted as an expert in the field of architecture for his testimony this evening.
Yes.
Okay. Pete, if you would, just walk us through the plan, the lot size, and what we can do to squeeze in as much or as little as possible to make this work over on 301 North Vendome.
okay, so as mentioned, the lot is undersized in area and width. The depth of the lot is, pretty nice at 80 feet, but being only 33 feet wide, it puts obvious constraints on what we can do with the width of the building and the setbacks on the sides. So, what we're proposing is a 2.5-story building over garage and entry at the ground floor and some storage. The first floor would have the living space and a guest room. Second floor, we have 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and the whole third floor would be the master suite. So for the entire building, we have 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, about 2,550 square feet of living space.
Mr. Weiss, you're proposing a fairly nicely designed crawl space, bottom level floor. That level will not contain livable, habitable space, will it?
Right.
And as we are required to do, based on FEMA and our flood ordinances, we would record and provide to the board a non-habitability conversion agreement with the city, correct?
Correct.
So that space, ladies and gentlemen, will remain storage and it won't be converted to any other living space, which we know is a concern of the board. I'm sorry, Pete, I cut you off.
Okay, so it's going on a little bit. So, as mentioned, the combined side yard setback is required to be 12.2 feet. We're proposing 11, so we're holding slightly more than the minimum required setback in each side, which gives us a total of 11. To me, 1.2 feet on the width of the building is not a significant deviation. The front setback, in this particular lot, the average setback for the porch and the front deck and the building came out to be more or less the same. So if we were to hold the required setback for the deck, we'd have to start cutting a lot of space out of the building. So that is the reason why we're pursuing a variance for the front yard setback also. With regard to the pool equipment, we're required to have 10-foot side yard setback. We need 4.5 to 5 feet for the pool equipment. We need 3 feet between the pool equipment and the pool. We need 6 foot from the pool to the side yard. So when you add all that together, you end up with 24 feet. So if you were to comply with all those requirements, your pool would be 9 feet wide. So
Is it fair to say, Pete, that one of those changes begets the next? You have to move it in, you have to move the pool closer, pool equipment. Each of what you just said, step by step by step, makes the compliance with the ordinance a hardship.
yes.
Okay.
So what we're requesting is to maintain what would be the same setback for air conditioning equipment, let's say, condensing units. They're only required to be 5 feet. And to my thinking, pool equipment is no more of a nuisance than condensing units. So that's my rationale for justifying why I think we should be permitted to.
And Pete, more
Well, we'll see
importantly,
variance.
you know, we've discussed this issue extensively with the applicant, and we've discussed a fairly significant sound deadening enclosure for the equipment, correct?
Yes,
And if this were to be granted and the pool equipment would be where it is, the applicant has expressed a desire to reach out to the fence doctor, I'm sure some of you are familiar, who prepares the sound deadening equipment. So whatever location the pool equipment ultimately occupies, if it's within the setback where it's not required and we're able to get a variance, we would have that enclosed in such a manner to limit or eliminate the sound from the pool equipment vibration.
we could reduce it, yes.
Okay.
I wouldn't say eliminate,
As much as we could.
as much as we can.
Right.
And the pool equipment, I mean, really, it can't go under the building because of the flood requirements. It won't fit underneath. It can't stick it on the roof because it can't pump the water that far. So it's really got to be kind of no higher than where we have it sitting.
Again, that would be a hardship, correct?
Yep. And lastly, I guess, is the third floor deck. The deck that we propose is very small. It's only 3.5 feet deep, 12 feet wide or so. So I mean, it's-
Excuse me, I just want to point out real quick on the pool equipment. The location you have shown will actually be in the backyard of the adjoining neighbor, not the side yard, so you would actually comply with with the rear yard setback for the neighbor, so
It's not a variance.
very little, no, it's a variance.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
It's a variance, but-
But it's a side yard versus a rear yard, so you would actually, if the house is shifted 100, 90 degrees, you comply. Just wanted to point it out.
Everybody follow that?
Yeah, we'll move everything around.
Or- Because we're we're one end off the corner, so the adjacent houses to the south side, their rear yards would actually be adjacent to our side yard because of the configuration of the block.
This is the side yard.
So Pete, you were talking about the third floor deck. Does the third floor deck encroach into any of the setbacks?
So it's more than,
No,
Okay. So,
well, actually, yes.
cut it off, I'm sorry.
The third floor deck meets the requirement for the deck requirement, front yard setback for the deck, not for the building. There's
Right,
a
but-
slight difference there.
It meets the front yard for the deck itself.
Yes.
And it would be a deck, so theoretically it would meet. It's just not allowed as a structure.
Right.
Right. So with regard to the third floor deck, ladies and gentlemen, the structure itself, meaning the deck if it were approved, meets the requirement for the setback. It just doesn't meet it for the house.
Well, there's two setbacks. You got one for the deck, one for the house. So it protrudes from the face of the building by a few inches, 8 inches or whatever it is. So it meets the setback for a deck, it doesn't meet the setback for the house, building. It's already
Turn
only,
on microphones, please, I can't hear you.
I mean, we currently have it, it's only 3.5 feet deep, so, I mean, it's a
Okay,
really
you
tight
could
building.
take a little off the master bedroom and push it back and
How big is the deck? How wide is it?
About 12 feet wide, 3.5 feet deep.
That's the first, 3.5 feet deep for the third floor?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's, you know, you're not, maybe you could fit a chair out there, but it's, you know, it's basically for going out there, 1 or 2 people to catch the sunset, and that's, you know,
Right.
occasional use.
So, just so I can clarify, in addition to needing the variance itself for even the permission to have that third floor deck, you're saying there's an additional variance you're
No, the
requesting
opposite.
for the 8-inch?
Just to have it.
Sorry, just to have it.
Just
It
to have
meets
it,
the other
okay.
requirement, yes, but it doesn't go out
Both.
far enough, right, correct.
Okay. I thought we added one.
Mr. Weiss, in your professional opinion as a licensed architect, do you see any detriments associated with the granting of these variances? And do you believe that the shape of the lot and the restrictions that are placed upon us by the zoning code creates a hardship pursuant to Margate's zoning ordinances and the New Jersey municipal land use law?
Yes.
You see a benefit from granting this variance to build this beautiful house that you designed?
Sure, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, unless the board has any questions, we'll wait for members of the public to ask, and we'll turn it back to you.
I got a couple of questions. Going backwards, I hope I got the right paperwork, because Chris Balance's name's on this stuff.
He
That's
was
right.
You don't look
available
like Chris.
tonight.
He got me to a certain point, and I was able to get to the next. I just found out about this myself earlier this week, so,
Oh, That's just correct, then, that there's something,
yes.
okay.
Are the plans accurate?
Yes, nothing's changed on the drawings.
I guess then that Chris wrote this addendum to the application?
That's correct. I did not prepare the application, Mr. Wojcicki.
Because there's some things in here that I don't understand at all.
Well, yes, maybe we can answer.
You want to, says the requested 6-inch plate height, we still dealing with that? It's one of the variances asked for.
Probably not, because, as Roger mentioned, we can actually raise the entire building. I was measuring the plate height from VFE +4, but apparently I can measure it from a higher height, so I would say no.
So that variance is gone?
Yes.
Correct. And we will take advantage, Mr. Wozleski, of Roger's comment earlier to bring up the garage an additional 6 inches.
All right.
There's no way, Eric? There's no way we can get the pool equipment on the HVAC platform? Because Roger did ask about that.
I didn't say on the HVAC platform, I just said they could probably relocate it, but as I mentioned, the 5-foot, it's located from their own side yard, faces the rear yard of the neighboring property. It would actually comply if that was a rear yard, and I think it's a wash.
Yeah, they got room off that little roof there that added into that platform there. It's only gonna take another 3 foot.
I don't know, you want pool equipment 30 feet up in here?
I've seen worse.
I understand what you're saying, Mr. Galantino. I think the benefits, however, of keeping it lower than putting it up high, obviously it is possible, but you're pumping water up fairly high, that it weighs in favor of keeping the equipment as low as possible to the pool. We'd certainly like more room on. Obviously, we've got just a narrow lot that this seems to, as I said, one problem with the lot begets the next, the pool to the equipment to the next vertical member, and that just keeps pushing everything back.
From my experience also, a lot of people complain about the noise of the HVAC being on the roof. So if it add a pool equipment to that, it's going to be really loud.
And we will do everything we can to deaden it. I know that the company that performs the sound attenuation does a very good job of keeping it low.
Well, you are adding shrubs along that side there, too. That'll help deaden the sound.
Right.
I do have one additional comment, or question, is where are you going to store the trash cans and recycling? Is that going to be in a storage area? In the garage?
Garage.
Is there any way you can move that door a little bit further back so the car wouldn't conflict with ingress and egress of the storage area? Thanks.
Which door are you talking
The one on this right side, rather than have
Yeah.
it
about? Oh, right there.
exit from the side of the house, you push it into the
That's a good
storage
idea.
section. Because then if you have a car, it's already tight with just 5 feet
Yeah, that's
between the
fine.
columns.
I just think you have a tendency not to put the cans.
That's fine, that can be a condition.
So Raj, can they put the pool equipment in the storage?
Yeah, that's what I was just,
It
No,
wouldn't be
it's below
at the
flood.
right elevation,
It's too
right?
low.
Doesn't it have to be at flood?
Yeah, but he's got the additional, the height for the garage. He's at 8, almost 9, right? Aren't you at 9 or 8?
well, they're showing 7.6 on the drawing.
But we're raising it up 6 inches, based on what
It'd
Roger
be
said.
up to 8 foot.
Yeah.
You can't get the pool equipment in that storage room
No, it's
high
not.
enough?
No, it's not gonna be
No.
high enough.
Nope.
Now, we're still
Grades
below.
at 5.5,
yeah.
so 8 would be 13.5, and we have to be above 13, now I guess 6 inches.
Yeah, you can't do it. Okay. Anybody else from the board have any other questions?
Just a comment that it would appear that you have some hardship cases here, but when you look at the pool equipment in the pool's not a hardship.
Anybody else? Anyone from the public like to speak?
Just come up, state your name and address, and I'll swear you in.
Jeff Rosenberger, 600 Pacific Avenue, Atlantic City. In the year 2011, I lived in that property.
Mr. Rosenberg, you swear affirm testimony you're about to give you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Last time I did this, I got married. Am I getting married?
No.
I do. I'm familiar with the property. I'm familiar with the lot size. I've been in the middle of 3,000 deals in the Down Beach area. 80 feet of ground is a deep lot. Everything, all these variances are being designed around the pool as we cram 5 more bedrooms into a 33-foot space. Joe had it right. Thank you.
Mr. Rosenberg, just respectfully, I just want a question for you. Does this affect you at all in any way?
I'm friendly with Miss Mullen.
So it doesn't affect you personally?
No, it does not.
The design of the house won't
But
have...
the design,
please,
wait a
sir.
minute,
Let
something
me
has
talk.
affected me in Margate. The design of Margate has chased me from town. I live uptown
Okay,
now.
so you no longer live here,
Correct.
and you don't like this house because you're friendly with the woman who's suing the guy...
No, I'm
coming in
listening
from
to
the application.
variances, no. I'm listening to variances being granted about a pool.
I think your application, I think your objection is disingenuous, because what you're saying is, you don't like this...
Said the
because-
same thing when I was a resident.
Okay, well, you're not a resident, but thank you.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank
I want you to take into consideration, you have the right to give any weight to testimony. The testimony he just gave was because he's friendly with the woman who lost her lawsuit, and now he doesn't like the fact that this is being built. So please, when you make your decision, keep that in mind.
Okay. Anybody else from the public like to speak? Okay. Public portion's closed. Any other questions from the board?
This vote being broken out into
What?
personally,
Excuse me?
what's that do?
Everyone has to be...
Typically,
I have a problem only with the third floor deck. The other things I do not have a problem with. So if it was, the vote was broken up into 2 votes.
Ladies and gentlemen, that would be our request, and I would say fine. It's up to us if we wanted to do that, and as Mr. Wozleski requests, it would be up to us to ask the board, but I would say if a split vote on the variances is a motion that's made, I'm okay with that.
typically with C variance applications, typically, no. But this is somewhat of a unique situation because we have certain variance requests from bulk requirements, and then we have something with a deck that is just not permitted, so it's something they could... So in that situation, if that's the request, I would be okay with doing 2 votes. One on the 3rd floor deck and the other on the remaining variances.
I'd request it, yeah, you would do it on the pool as well, correct?
No.
Because I have a problem with the,
No.
with the pool. It's not a hardship, in my opinion, for that equipment. Don't need it.
No, I mean, I'm okay with separating the third floor deck, then everything else should, there are setbacks and, I'm okay with doing 2, not 3.
Okay, so, do you have any comment on that, Art?
No, I'm okay with what Mr. Manos and Mr. Wozleski and Mr. DiGirolamo said. You know, look, you're going to vote the way you're going to vote. If the third floor deck is an issue because it's not considered generally the same as the other Cs because they're bulk variances, we're okay splitting that in half.
All right, but you're not okay with trying to do anything with the pool equipment?
You know, I understand Mr. DiGirolamo's position. It's, the pool itself, and even though he's saying it's not a hardship, we do believe that the lot size creates that hardship. So respectfully, and look, everyone's going to vote the way they want to vote, we still think the pool equipment has to go someplace. It can't go in the storage space because it's below base
Right.
flood. That would be ideal. 30 feet in the air is not ideal, so where else can it go? You know, I guess you could eliminate the pool, you could eliminate the other variances. We can always do that if we come in for a case and try to make it 100% variance-free. But as you know, we're always here fighting literally for inches. We want
Right.
a couple inches here or there, so I don't know what else we can do other than, come, you know, try to vote on Pete's design.
That's fine, okay. All right, so. All right, so we have any conditions? I think we have one condition, right?
I got a list of a few, and you're okay with everything in Mr. McLaren's report?
We're okay with Mr. McLaren's report with the raising of the garage 6 inches, moving the door to the underside of the first level to the storage area, not in the garage, and I don't know if the board has other conditions, we'll certainly, I'm certain we'll agree to them.
That's what I have. And the non-conversion agreement, I don't know if you mentioned that.
I did, and I'll give that to Mr. Galantina before we get a CO, obviously, so he's been pretty good about telling us when we need to do that and when we don't.
So what are we gonna vote on first, the main body or the?
Let's do, the first vote will be for, as you call it, the main body, then we'll, if that passes, then we'll go on to the third floor deck. So the first motion, what we need is a motion, is anyone else have any other questions? Ready to frame a motion? So what we're gonna do is 2 votes. The first one is we need a motion for C variance relief for the following lot area of 2,640 square feet where 4,000 square feet is required, lot width of 33 feet where 50 feet is required, front yard setback to the deck of 11.5 feet. That's not the third floor deck, obviously. 11.5 feet, where 15.8 feet is the prevailing required setback.
That's to the first and second floor.
First and second floor decks, correct. The combined side yard setback of 11 feet, where 12.2 feet is required, and a pool equipment setback of 5.17 feet, where 10 feet is required, and that's a side yard setback. There's also a waiver from the submission of an area map showing all properties within 200 feet. The conditions would be the applicant will provide for sound deadening enclosure for the pool equipment. The applicant will provide a non-conversion agreement for the space below BFE. The applicant will relocate that door on the right side, move it back to accommodate the trash and recycling cans, and all other conditions set forth in Mr. McLaren's report of October 22nd, 2008, and any representations made by or on behalf of the applicant will also be followed. So that's the first motion we need.
And Mr. Manos, just to be clear, on the pool equipment sound deadening,
That would apply to the,
that's something that Mr. Galantino would have to approve, so it's not just for us to put on. Mr. Galantino would have to approve it to a certain decibel level, and whatever he decides the decibel level needs to be, we'll make sure it is
Okay,
lower
so-
than that.
Leah,
Yes.
before you ask for a motion, can I just get clarification on one thing, because it affects, I think, my understanding of the motion.
Okay.
And I'm only asking because it's from Balance's paperwork, and I want to make sure it's accurate. It's the
plate
Staff
height.
Committee Action Planning Board paperwork. It says page 16, it's signed by Mr. Balanson. It just is an overview, going over size and dimension of the lot. It says the same, about 2640 that we know of. The height of the building, we're going from 20 feet plus or minus to approximately 30 feet. Is that still accurate?
That's correct.
And we're taking advantage of that 6 inches. That's the only change we've had today.
That's correct.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, Ms. Hess, and also the garage door being pushed back.
Fine,
But-
yeah. Height of the building, we're going from 1.5 to 2.5, which is permitted. Percentage of coverage, this is the one that I want to clarify. Is it still remain, existing condition was 24%, and now for the proposed condition of percent coverage on the land, we're going to 40%?
Correct. Allowable is 40, we're going to 40.
Going to the 40,
Right.
okay. The front yard setback saying existing was 14.7, proposed is 16.5. So it's
Correct.
essentially improving.
Yes,
Rear setback, existing was all the way in 38 feet, now we're going to the 16, still permitted.
correct.
And then the combined side yards, again, slight improvement of that 0.2 inches from 10.8 to the 11 combined.
Good eye, yeah.
Okay. All right, I just wanted to confirm it, just because it was a Balanson signature, I wanted to make sure that nothing had changed there. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, so someone needs to make that motion. Go ahead.
The plate height, do you still need that variance?
You know?
It's in the addendum.
Right, and that's what Clem asked about earlier.
Well, I was measuring the plate height from BFE plus 4. I would assume.
I thought you complied because you have the gambrel roof in there.
Well, if we,
You comply if you measure from the first floor.
if you measure from the first floor, we're going to be well
You're good.
under, yeah.
Right.
You're
We're
good.
actually
That
under.
variance goes away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, just want to clarify that.
You need me to make a motion, Leo?
Someone needs to make the motion, yeah?
Okay, I make a motion.
Second. Clem Wasilewski?
All the variances that they require under this motion, I think are ultimately the result of having a lot that's 17 foot less in width than is required for the zone. I think the variances that they're asking for is small compensation for this deficiency, which obviously does create considerable hardship. So I vote yes on the motion.
Jim Galantino?
I thought the comment about the deck, it's not obtrusive to the front of the house, it's going to be set back into the footprint of the house. Oh, it's not the first motion.
Well,
Excuse me.
the first and second floor decks are.
Okay.
There's a front yard
As to the
setback
pool
there.
equipment, we try to relocate it to a different area, but if we're gonna use a deadening equipment, then hopefully that can solve the problem with the neighbors. I see with Clem's hardship that he stated, the lot does cause some of the setback problems. So in that I vote yes.
Craig Palmisano? Oh, sorry. Despina Hess?
As to the lot area, lot width.
Microphone.
Lot area, lot width, the first two variances requested. I see that they're existing nonconforming. I didn't have an issue with those. Of course, you need to be able to make use of your property, build a home. The front yard deck and the front yard, and the combined side yard, with those, again, I review those numbers because it's not lost on me that we're not pushing them to the limits. There's improvement from what exists, but at the same time, we're going 10 feet higher and, almost double, slightly less than double of the coverage on the land, so it's a more imposing home. But even still, considering all those, I did not have a problem with those two variances as well, because making use of the property for habitable space, again, slightly excessive, but permitted. I do take issue with the pool equipment, although it may seem minor to other members. I don't see the criteria as having been satisfied, given the fact that you are being able to make use of the property quite luxuriously. I think that the pool equipment variance is being driven by the luxury of having a pool. I don't see that as something that our master plan is encouraging us to do, to allow people to max out property. Certainly other residents would enjoy a pool as well, but not all properties permit that or allow for that given to the space. So I don't see that, based on the packet permitted, or packet provided in the testimony today, that those criteria were satisfied. So for that reason, I have to vote against the variance as to the pool equipment, so I vote no.
Remy Pelosi?
In light of the fact that there are no neighbors here to speak out against any of these requested variances, and because you're going to put the sound deadening equipment on it, I have no issue with the other variances. I approve.
Joe DiGirolamo?
The variance is required for the lot area with setbacks and the side yard. I don't have a problem with, but I do, as I stated before, I do have a problem with the pool. It's a luxury, as stated by Des, and I believe that it doesn't really have a bearing. It's a great house. You can't meet the requirements for the equipment, so therefore I'm voting against it.
Ron Grupo?
Due to the fact we have to look at the pool included with the other variances, I don't have a problem with the side yard, rear yard setbacks, any of those. I also have a problem with the pool. The pool I do feel is a luxury, and it shouldn't be the onus of the board to try and fit the pool into the space. If you want to have a pool, then come with a plan or a submission that would accommodate the pool within the purview of what's allowed and what this board could pass. I also have a problem with the placement of the pool equipment, and I understand it's going to be sound attenuated as best as possible, but I don't see the pool as a hardship. I see the size of the lot. It's a beautiful home, squeezing a lot of home into that spot. But because of the pool being lumped in with the other variances, I have to vote against. Thank you.
Mike Richmond?
Yeah, I think this is a good example of a hardship case with the size of the lot. I think that the house fits in with like the new prevailing neighborhood with all the houses being raised and everything like that. As far as the pool equipment goes, I mean, in my opinion, there's definitely ways that can be addressed with sound deadening materials. To be honest with you, I mean, HVAC equipment can be kept at 5 foot. So I'm still not really sure why we, don't allow that for pool equipment. I know for a fact that it can be definitely dealt with sound deadening equipment, so I'm going to vote to approve the application.
What was your vote, Mike?
Yes.
Application passes 4-3.
Okay, now we need a second motion to permit the third floor deck, where third floor decks are not permitted.
I'll make a
And the
motion.
same conditions and everything would apply.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Clem Wazewski?
When we recently worked on revising the local ordinance, the third floor decks were one item that we spent considerably time on, and came down to making them available on more properties. However, not available throughout town, and not available in the location where this project's located. I think to consider a variance for a third floor deck at this juncture would, to say the least, be premature. Plus the fact that I have heard no justification at all for it in the presentation. So I vote no on the motion.
Jim Galantino?
Like I said earlier, I don't think it's that obtrusive. I think it's coming out to, I think it actually helps open the house up. I've always been, if the deck's on the third floor are not as bad as they're not straight across and take up the whole front and don't meet the setbacks. I think Pete did a nice job with the design. And I approve that because I think it's going to work. It makes that third floor.
Despina Hess?
For all the reasons already stated by Clem, I also vote no as to the variance for the third floor deck.
Remy Pelosi?
I think the deck is really minimal, and I vote to approve. I think it would be nice if you have your bedroom upstairs and you can use your deck and it's not imposing on other people, or you're not looking down into anyone else's home. There's no issue with it. There's no neighbors here to speak out against it and the design, so I'm going to approve it.
Joe DiGirolamo?
Yeah, we have no allowance for a third floor deck currently in that location, and basically I see no need for it. It would certainly would add to the beauty of the architectural design, but currently we just don't allow for it, and just not going to at this point agree to let that continue. So I vote no.
Ron Grupo?
I feel that even though the ordinance says no third floor decks in that area, this deck is very unobtrusive and it's just barely a deck. So I would think that it opens up the home and it doesn't really have any impact on any neighbors that I can see. Again, no one's here to dispute whether it should be allowed or not in the neighborhood. I think it's a nice touch. And I vote yes to approve.
Mike Richmond?
I mean, the deck's 3.5 feet wide. You know, I think some of the thinking behind third floor decks was that, you don't want people up there having parties and yelling and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, I don't think you're going to have a big party with a 3.5 foot deck. We also approved another third floor deck in the same neighborhood about a year ago, and on the input from our safety guy over here, Mr. Palmisano, he pointed out that this house is going to be, at the deck height, is going to be 40 feet high. So if there ever was an issue as far as a fire or anything like that goes, it's a lot easier for somebody to go out on their deck and go down a ladder than get carried out a window. So I think it's actually a benefit, and I'm going to approve it.
Application passes 4-3.
All righty. Our next case is Vision Property Group, LLC, 104 South Gladstone Avenue, Block 7.02, Lot 10, in the S30 District to grant C variance relief for exterior staircase to second floor and possibly others. Taxes and water are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied.
I think Mr. Malinsky, what we typically do is we go to Mr. McLaren, he goes through his report, and then we'll turn it over to you, if that's okay.
That's fine.
If you want to introduce yourself, yeah, sure.
Chairman, members of the board, Michael Malinsky of Fox Rothschild LLP, on behalf of the applicant, Vision Property Group LLC.
Thanks.
Set?
Could you guys take it outside?
All right.
Thank
Board
you.
Chairman, board members, my report is in regard to application of Vision Property Group LLC, 104 South Gladstone Avenue, Block 7.02, Lot 10, which is in the S30 zone. FEMA elevation 10. Background is as follows. The applicant is seeking relief from the ordinances of the City of Margate in order to construct an exterior set of steps to the second floor on a non-waterfront house. The applicant also proposed to return the enclosed front building back to a porch and add a spiral staircase to the second floor deck. The ordinance permitted the decks but not the steps. The existing porch was permitted to be rebuilt due to remediation of an oil tank. Again, they have approvals to rehabilitate the entire structure, including the porches and the decks, but not the steps, so that's why they're here. Page 2 is the zoning chart. Page 3 is the documents reviewed. They're seeking one variance, and that's exterior stairs to a second floor, whereas exterior stairs to second floors are not permitted at this location, and one is being proposed as per section 175-30C4A. No waivers have been requested. I have 4 comments. I'll let the applicant address the comments, but, and they can address their application. I have no further comments until later. Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. McLaren. With regard to the comments set forth in Mr. McLaren's report, we are willing to comply with each one. They were an as-built survey to be submitted upon completion of construction to provide a grass planting strip, to provide additional landscaping. We can do that between the deck and the sidewalk. So we have no problem with those conditions. What we're here tonight for is originally where these 2 decks are located were enclosed habitable areas of the house. We actually took those habitable areas and created decks. What that did was actually a couple things. We reduced the habitable area and floor to area ratio of the house. The habitable area is specifically 175.25 square feet. And at the same time, vertically, we decreased the existing non-conforming front yard setback because you no longer had the front structure going into the whole front facade of the house going into the front yard. You only now have the portion of the deck. What we're looking to do, and is where we're looking to put this spiral staircase, is actually it's inside the first floor deck. It's actually the furthest point from where the stairs come up onto the deck to access the house to the second floor. A couple things. We feel that this not only prevents any type of, I know the purpose behind preventing this was illegal conversions of duplexes. That is not our intention. This is a 3-bedroom house. We have no incentive to rent it. Plus, this would make no sense to have an access point where you have to come up onto the first floor deck, go all the way to the furthest point, and then walk upstairs. The second thing is that also it allows, in case of an emergency, in case of a fire, someone that's on the second floor deck to easily get out of the house and down to the first floor where this is located. Plus, the configuration of this stairwell, it's a spiral stairwell, its dimensions, you know, make it sensible for just a single-family home. This property, just to give you a little history, this property, my client had this under contract back on January 27, 2016. We actually didn't close on it until July of this year because of an environmental contamination issue. When we were under contract to buy the house, we actually went in and found the underground storage tank, and then the property was the subject of 2.5 years of remediation. And how we did that, so because this was a 90-year-old house and had significant historical value, we actually had it raised instead of demolished and rebuilt. We actually had it raised, and it was, the remediation was taken care of. Unfortunately, it took 2.5 years. But this is what we were dealing with, where they had to remove the actual deck and the first floor porch. And actually everything was, the foundation was put back to the way it was. And what we did ultimately in going forward with this is say, let's reduce the floor to area ratio. Let's make the front yard setback more conforming than its existing non-conforming use. And all we're seeking tonight is now to allow this spiral staircase from the first floor deck to the second floor deck. And I know in addition to 175-30C4A, I would also be seeking variance relief just to be safe under 175-30C 30C7, which says there shall be no outdoor stairs providing access to the second floor in a single-family zone. Just to be safe, I'll include that in my prayer for relief. At this time, my witness is my professional planner, Mr. Dixon. I will qualify him at this time with the board's permission.
Sure.
Sure. Mr. Dixon, just state your name and business address, and I'll swear you in.
Kevin Dixon, 335 Jimmy Leeds Road, Dixon Associates.
And you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Can you please explain to the board your background in professional planning?
Yes, I graduated from the University of Pittsburgh in 1978 with a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering. From that, I practiced civil engineering and obtained an engineering license in 1983. In 1986, evolving into the planning world with numerous private site developments, and since then, through the decades, have represented many municipal clients as well and done planning work for Atlantic and Cape May counties, numerous projects for them as well. I'm currently the town planner and zoning board and planning board planner for the town of Hamilton, and I have served Galloway Township, Hamilton Township, and other townships as their planner for various boards as well.
Great.
At this time, I'd ask this board to recognize Mr. Dixon as a professional planner qualified to give testimony before this board.
Sure.
Mr. Dixon, we're here tonight seeking one variance to allow a spiral staircase from our first floor deck to the second floor deck. With that, it comes under what's known as a C2 variance. For the C2 variance, you need to establish both positive and negative criteria. Can you go through the board how this variance qualifies under the positive and negative criteria to allow this board to grant the variance?
Yes, your report, Roger's report identified the potential for a C1 or a C2 variance, and we would look at this more like a flexible C2 variance, where we would hope that the board would agree with us when we demonstrate that the benefits of this variance would substantially outweigh any detriment that the variance would cause, as well to advance the purposes of zoning and also to show the board that this variance, if granted, would not be a substantial detriment to the public good, nor would it be a substantial impairment of your zone plan or zoning ordinance. And let me go through those one by one. And they kind of, in this instance, kind of blend together. I think as we go through the positives, we can sort of blend the purposes of zoning with the benefits of the variance. And let me describe how I believe those can be understood in the context of both of those. What's being proposed, if I might go to this drawing that's on the board, this is A 2.0. The board has a copy of this, and it is the architectural elevation of the proposed building, which, as Roger indicated, is permitted to be constructed as you see it, with the exception of the spiral staircase that separates the first floor deck from the second floor deck. This space, and this is the front elevation from upper left corner of that drawing, A 2.0. And as you're facing the street, or as you're standing at the street facing the building, the area where you see the chimney, the deck railing on the first and second floor used to be a projection of the structure, enclosed floor space, 2 stories. And that projection came all the way out to where the proposed deck would be constructed. So what has happened then is that the volume of that space, the mass and scale of that structure then has been reduced significantly from the vertical face of that building to 2 horizontal open air exterior deck structures, as opposed to that full volume of 2-story interior living space. That is a substantial reduction in the scale and the appearance of the building, because as you turn and look at that space from the side, you see that what used to be part of the house is now simply 2 porches, a 2-story open air structure, or 2 structures, one above the other. And so what is key about this feature is the stairwell that connects the two spaces, the first floor and the second floor. They're not permitted, and that stairway is not permitted mainly due to the wise zoning goal of preventing the illegal conversion. I think there's probably another valid reason for not permitting those, and that is just the visual aspect of having that exterior stair on houses in the residential districts. So what we've done here in this case is that stairway is tucked back into the far corner of the deck structure. And what I'll do is show you the floor plan on sheet A1.1, also a sheet that the board already has. This is the floor plan, the ground floor plan, and proposed second floor plan. And what I'm outlining and what I'm tracing with my finger is that deck area that is on the first floor, and then the deck area that's on the second floor above it, proposed. And then the circle that you see tucked way back under the far corner of the deck from the street is that spiral staircase. Now, it serves a certain benefits, and it serves certain purposes. So if I could just briefly go through those. One of the things we need to demonstrate to the board is that this advances the purposes of zoning. That is sort of an offset for the request to do something that the ordinance does not permit. The courts recognize that if a deviation from zoning advances a purpose of zoning, then it offsets the negative impacts that that may result from that request, the inherent negative impact, since you're asking for something that the ordinance doesn't allow. So how do we show that? We look through the purposes of the Act, Municipal Land Use Act, and we find that they are enumerated. And I will just go through a couple, three that we believe apply. A, to encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of all lands in this state in a manner which promotes the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Mr. Belinsky went through the safety aspect of having an exterior stairwell to this building, especially one that is not conducive to becoming some kind of access way or egress that would be, first of all, must be code compliant in order to be an actual egress to another dwelling, but also not configured in a manner that would even be conducive to allowing that to happen. It's a spiral staircase. It would never be used for some kind of conversion, which is, again, the primary purpose for preventing this from being done. But it has the added benefit of the safety aspect of allowing egress, and even though it's not an official egress, again, it's a spiral staircase. We're not trying to make the case that this is a fire access issue, but if you're on the second floor, you're getting out of that building through the door and down that stairwell. Without that, you're in that interior space trying to find your way out. So it does provide a benefit and advances that purpose of zoning. If you look at letter B, it's virtually the same thing. To secure safety from fire, flood, panic, and other natural and man-made disasters, you have now a safer structure because of that stairwell. Purpose C, to provide adequate light, air, and open space. This is a big one, and this is one that is generally deemed to be very important.
Real quick, before you get into light, air, and open space, if you actually look at the pictures that I provided to you, the bottom two show you how that area where the two decks are was enclosed. You see the three windows in the structure right there? That was actually, that's what it looked like prior to us putting the deck on. It was completely enclosed with three windows. If you look at this picture right here, you can see it from the side. It went all the way around. So that gives you a better visual of what it looked like before, how it was completely enclosed and came all the way out to the existing non-conforming front yard setback. And now, so you have a better understanding of why opening it up does create more and promotes light, air, and open space. Sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
That's all right. I'll describe it in greater detail, but let me just say that it also ties into purpose letter I to promote a desirable visual environment. And one of the things that those two work together to do is that they, again, as I said, reduce the scale and the mass of that building, the volume of that building substantially. It creates a substantial positive impact on the desirable visual impact as well as light, air, and open space. So we believe that the purposes of zoning are advanced, at the same time benefits are achieved by reducing the overall scale and mass of the building by replacing living space with exterior deck space, outdoor enjoyment space. And when we get to the fact that the benefits reducing, we are actually reducing floor area, so we're reducing what's known as the floor area ratio on the site, which is basically a measure of the amount of building coverage and the amount of height that you have. When you take the total floor area divided by the total area of the site, we've reduced the living floor area substantially. With that, we want to talk about what the potential negative criteria are.
And with the negative criteria, getting into the substantial impairment of the intent and purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinance, the master plan and its general comments incorporates the purposes of zoning that you just went through. Is that correct?
It does.
Okay. And in the general comments, all of the criteria that you indicated for the purposes of zoning is also in that section of the master plan and would be promoted as well based on your prior testimony, correct?
It does, and
Okay.
what we're looking for is an application which does not spoil the intent of that, which is consistent with the intent of that, and this is directly consistent with the intent of that. The structure is more in conformance with the zoning than it was before, just by reducing the overall volume
Okay.
of the structure.
And also, with regard to the S30 section, dealing specifically with S30 section, they recommended no changes, and you feel that that also shows that it's not a substantial impairment to the intent and purpose of the zone plan.
Well, and the reason for that, yes, I agree, and it does. I agree with that statement. It is consistent with the S30 provision in the master plan in the sense that it recommends no changes, and in this application, there are no negative impacts exacerbated by the existing structure or any existing nonconformities. The existing nonconformities are all either staying the same or being reduced by this application.
Okay. With regard to substantial detriment to the public good, do you feel that this, if the board were to grant this variance, that would have any substantial detriment on the public good?
No, I do not, and in fact, it is my opinion, my professional opinion, that it has an actual positive impact on the public good. We generally look at substantial detriments in terms of noise, odors, the intensity of the use, the quiet enjoyment of the adjoining property owners in the neighborhood, and this will enhance their ability to coexist with this property because it does provide the benefits that were described earlier, and there are no as I said, exacerbations of existing nonconformities.
I have no further questions for Mr. Dixon. If the board has any questions, we're more than happy to address them.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Mr. Dixon, the staircase is a 4 foot?
Is it, I'm sorry,
No,
4
it
foot
looks
in,
looks like 4.
you mean in terms of its horizontal?
Width.
4 foot,
It's got to be
48
5.
inches.
Does it make a difference if it's 5? Because it needs to be 5 by code.
I don't believe so.
No, we'll make it 5. You can't?
Isn't the chimney, fireplace is in the way of that, isn't
Fireplace
it?
is in the way.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
why it's 4 foot.
We have it 4.
I have a couple questions for you, sir.
Is that for, out of what?
Let me swear in the
Railing?
applicant. Good. You want to swear in Mr.
Sure.
Donato?
Mr. DiDonato, just state your name and address for the record.
John DiDonato, 979 South Second Road, Hamilton, New Jersey, and second home down here right now at Essex Avenue, 102 South Exit.
And you swear affirm testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a 50 by 50 rough opening. That's a 48-inch staircase that'll go in that because there's a fireplace. And that's one of the things, we really couldn't change it into a duplex because then you would need a conforming spiral staircase that's 50-some inches.
Okay,
That's
so-
one of the reasons it's actually better, it's 48, because we really couldn't make it a duplex if we...
So here's the
wanted
issue.
to.
Mr. Galantino is the construction official. Is a 4-foot staircase code?
It's got to be 5. It's got to be 5 for minimum egress, and I can't allow a 4. It's not by code. It's a new
Well,
staircase, right?
It's not technically egress to the house, it's just a secondary...
It's a staircase, any way you put it. It's a staircase.
So doesn't that make the application moot because?
Yeah, it's
It's not
you can't,
permitted.
it's not code.
Right.
Right, so unless it gets, if you say you would expand it to 5 feet, then we can move forward, but if you're not, there's no sense in wasting our time if you're gonna try to do something that's not the code, because it's not gonna be allowed. Correct?
And if we
Yeah.
vote on it, then that's it.
Huh? Well,
If
let's-
we-
let's see
Well,
what-
then I would deny the permit.
Huh?
I would have to
We'll,
de-
we'll make it 5 foot.
Okay.
That can be a condition. We'll make it work.
Okay.
Sir, I have some questions on the second floor. Like you talked about the fire hazard, and it's a great escape route with the staircase, but so is the deck at 13 foot by 13 foot without a staircase, to be on the outside edge of a deck in the case of a fire, to be rescued by a ladder. So the staircase doesn't have to, it's not a fire necessity to me.
I would agree, it only gives you the
It gives you
savings
another
of
option to
time
get out,
between
but-
the time
But the
that
staircase
fire
is not
hits and the ladder
necessary
shows up.
for a life-saving thing there.
Granted.
I also see that the doorway that, off that deck from the spiral staircase leads to a den. And that den has a bathroom with double bowl sinks, a full shower. The room has a walk-in closet. And we call it a den, but to me, it looks like a bedroom, and it's also boxed off from the hallway to the master bedroom with a door.
That actually was mislabeled. They labeled the master in the middle of the thing. That actually is the master. And downstairs on the first floor is like office slash
So
den.
you're saying the den is the master bedroom?
Yeah, and then on the first floor, it's technically, where it shows a bedroom, it should be labeled as a office slash den.
Not a bedroom downstairs?
You're right. It's on the first floor.
Because if it was 4 bedrooms, you need another parking space?
No, the house actually was a 6-bedroom house. That there was 6 bedrooms in that house, so.
Well, you're
So
showing.
it'll be,
We have 3 bedrooms.
we have 3 bedrooms and a den slash office there. That could be used as a
Are you saying
bedroom.
what's called a guest room on the first floor is not a guest room?
They're saying the master bedroom's here.
Right, we're gonna use it as an office den. It could be a guest room. There were 6 bedrooms in the house, but we have 3 bedrooms upstairs. And
When you have a closet and a bathroom, you got a bedroom.
I'm going to mark this as A1 and have my client show you what the actual configuration is. Can you please show them where the master bedroom is?
So this front bedroom that was labeled a master is now it's labeled a den as a master. This master bedroom is actually kind of like a master number 2 or a bedroom number 2. It looks like a bedroom, and that's why they located, but this is master in the front, has the deck. This is the real master.
So you're not increasing the number of bedrooms?
No, we're decreasing. The home had 4 bedrooms upstairs, and it had another 2 bedrooms in the basement, and we eliminated all the basement bedrooms, and it had a bathroom downstairs, had a laundry room. We eliminated all that.
So it's
So-
only going to be 3 bedrooms.
So the downstairs guest bedroom with, it's got a
3
full
plus the
bath, it's got a full bath there on the downstairs.
Right, it's an office slash den, but it could be, used.
Shower.
As a guest room.
Again, construction plans have already been submitted and approved. They're just here for the spiral staircase.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
We could probably fit, there's one in the garage. We could probably fit 4 there.
It's,
Yeah, but you know what?
It has 2 spaces are required, 3 spaces are existing, 3.
Yeah, so all these questions about parking and bedrooms and all this stuff, it's irrelevant. The plans have been approved, it's all according to code, so all we're talking about is a spiral staircase. Anybody else have any questions from the board?
This is a beach block house, correct?
Yes.
So you-
Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
if this house is 2 lots over, we wouldn't be
We
here.
wouldn't be here. That's correct. That's
All right.
correct. In fact, yes, because I know, because the property next to it, I had to argue with to get an access easement for the remediation,
Go ahead.
to clean up the property.
You have any idea how you're gonna fit this 5-foot stairway in?
Move it out.
It'll be a condition, and we'll work with the architect to try and get that done, and I'll be more than happy to, work with your planner regarding that, and Mr. McLaren.
It's gonna change the look.
Desmond?
Yes.
I just wanted to ask a quick question, because I want to give you the opportunity to respond. I don't want to have any surprises or
Okay.
for reasoning or anything like that. I'm stuck on the fact that, I know you spoke of, yeah, I know the master plan and the board's concern is that this property, this location would be converted to be used for B&B, whatever you want to call it. Our concern and my concern is certainly we're looking at the current owners, and quite frankly, I like the convenience of that, but I can't do what I like. We have to enforce what the master plan is asking us to enforce. And our concern isn't just the current owners, it's who acquires this property at any time in the future, and what is the surrounding community like, or the block, or the homes on that block. And I understand we wouldn't be talking about this if it was a few homes away, but it's not just where it currently resides or who may acquire this in the future. And certainly if a new owner comes around 3 years from now, we don't know. We have to protect the community in the event that that occurs. And my
Absolutely.
understanding of the explanation, and it was excellent, but essentially my understanding I grasped was the justification that you gave. Go to the decks as far as adequate light, air, and open space, as far as safety from fire. That goes to the decks themselves, not truly the staircase, because I see that as a bulk metal staircase. I don't get open space from a stairwell.
You're right.
And there's access to the locations from other places from within the home. So is there something else that you can
Yes.
maybe give me that can show me why it's justified under, the C2 flex variance? 'Cause
I'll
I
let
don't
Mr.
see it yet.
I'll let Mr. Dixon speak to that, but with regard to enforceability, I don't think my client, and I'll talk to him, but he'll have any problem with having as a condition of this resolution related to the spiral staircase, that if your concern is any conversion or using the second floor separately or conversion, having that in there, that it will not be utilized as a duplex, that it will not be converted, and there will be separate habitable living space with the approval of this staircase, which is enforceable by the board at a later date. I know Mr. Manos will probably put in the condition that if there's a misrepresentation or anything in this approval, you can always file a legal action and anything of that manner. But we have no problem with a condition being put in there to protect your concerns. And I'm sure I can work with Mr. Manos with regard to that, to alleviate that concern regarding any future owners of the property. Because the variance would run with the property, that approval is subject, it stays in place, and hopefully any buyer would do their due diligence and look into that, but would be enforceable by this board at that later date.
Leo, can we include Airbnb in that?
What's that?
No use of an Airbnb?
No.
That's not land use.
This is, no use of an Airbnb, no commercial business will be run out of there, nothing of that nature, and it will not be utilized as a duplex, it'll only be a single-family home. That is it.
I mean, even without a condition, if someone uses it a duplex, that's breaking the zoning ordinance.
Correct, and you can cite them, but just so it's out there, so that someone who wants to purchase the house, and if they wanted to see it, I have no problem it being a condition in there, so that it's actually on the record, and someone that goes to purchase knows, hey, look, I can't just change this the way I want to. I don't have a problem to protect the board's interest.
Yeah, I can agree to that, and I misspoke earlier. It actually had 7 bedrooms in this house. It had 4 upstairs, 1 on the first floor, and 2 in the basement. So we went from 7 to 3, possibly a 4th, so just to clarify.
Thank you.
And would decrease significantly the intensity, the use of this house. But go ahead, Kevin, if you can address the, sure.
I would like to address your question, and I thank you so much for bringing that up, because I left something out that was very important in the presentation. And that is that one of the primary purposes of doing this in the first place was that in the summer months, in good weather, coming back from the beach, coming back from wherever recreational interests they may have, the homeowner may have, they would like to go and enter their property and get up onto the second floor deck and enjoy the view ever since they put the dunes in. And so they want it has a better view of the ocean from that angle. That's not happening in interior floor space. And it's not conducive to that outdoor recreational feel of the home and use of the home if you have to trudge through the home to get upstairs to the second floor level. So that is the exterior stairwell allows them to stay outside once they've gone outside without having to traverse through the house to reach the second-story deck. And thank you for bringing that up, because that was left out.
Okay. Anyone from the public like to speak? Okay, public portion's closed. You wanna-
You're also requesting a waiver from the submission of the checklist.
That is correct. Most of the items, we are requesting a submission waiver in accordance with section 175-24, which requires a submission of a variance checklist. Your variance checklist is set forth in Appendix A. All of the information except for a copy of an area map showing all lots within 200 feet has been provided. The survey has been provided, although it is at the scale of 1 inch equals 20 feet. So it is at a reduced scale than what you are looking for. But everything else, the information was provided with the application. The only thing not is I did not provide a statement that the application is not to be accompanied by a separate application for site plan subdivision or conditional approval. So I'll state that on the record now. With that statement, everything in your variance checklist has been met except for the submission of same.
Okay,
Any conditions?
Everyone ready? Okay, what we need, someone needs to make a motion for C variance relief to permit the exterior spiral staircase between the first and second floor decks. And I'll note in there that that's relief from section 175-30C4A and the section that Mr. Malinsky referenced in his opening, 175-30C7. If I misstated that, we'll get it right.
Got it.
And there will be a waiver from the submission of a application checklist. And the conditions will be that the staircase will be 5 feet, must be 5 feet. I'll work with the applicant's attorney in putting a condition in there that the staircase in no way implies in any way that this is ever going to be converted to a duplex or a two-family dwelling, and it is not and shall not be a two-family dwelling. All the conditions in Mr. McCarn's report, which Mr. Malinsky during his opening stated he was in agreement with, and then all other representations made by or on behalf of the applicant during the course of the hearing shall be followed.
I'll make a motion.
Clem Wozleski?
So now we're being asked to vote on a proposed stairway. We don't know what it's gonna look like, and we don't know where it's going. I can't give my approval to something that unknown. I vote no on the motion.
Jim Galantino?
I mean, I understand what the board wants, a design, but I gotta go with the code. So I didn't realize that the stair had to be right in there. It could be pulled out a little bit from the wall to give it a 5-foot circumference. Or actually, they can build, I think the first 3 stairs might fall right, they could actually design, it looks like a custom-made design. So they might be able to design it around the fireplace. I don't know.
And it's going to be in, just to go back, it's going to be in the area that it currently exists. We're not changing the area it currently exists in. We're just, if we have to pull it out a little, we may, but we're just going to make it, as you indicate, we're going to work with you to comply with the 5-foot.
All right, great. I don't see any problem. I vote yes.
Craig Palmisano?
I have a few uncertainties about this whole second floor design, and the staircase leading to that. I don't feel it's necessary, and I don't really want to start and set a bad precedent on the block or other streets where it's not a permitted use. I vote no.
Despina Hess?
This is a situation where I came in just on its face, the application. I didn't think that you, to time, had satisfied your requirement permitted. After hearing the presentation, you answered all my questions. Myself, I'm even shocked. Personally, like I said, I'd like them, but I couldn't find the justification by our master plan as well as the the checklist that we need to satisfy. I think that in this unique situation and at this unique property, given the fact that it is so close to the beach, it is beach block, and given the fact that you were willing, the applicant worked with the board, was willing to submit to the conditions that were of concern to myself based on what our master plan is asking us to enforce as a board, that taking into account, as well as the fact of the location where we used to have a bulk first and second floor, certainly that doesn't automatically lend itself to giving you the staircase that's not permitted by our variance, but that is opening up more air, light, and space for the neighbors. And the staircase, the placement as well, went into the factor of why I am in favor of voting for this application, because essentially it's tucked away. And again, our master plan, I think, is asking us to move forward with a quaint beach community that's a family community. You know, unlike some of our nearby beach towns, this isn't a rental turnover type of location. And I think that our master plan is asking us to keep it as a family town. That's something that I certainly would like to see as well, and I think that's what our plan's calling for. I believe that, you know, our chairman, Mr. Pattison, a lot of times talks about how front porches make neighborhoods. And I think by having this staircase and, you know, ease of use for these decks, you know, you're gonna have a more community feel. And for those reasons, and for the reasons I've stated for this property, I do vote in favor of the application.
Thank you.
Remy Pelosi?
I agree with Despina. I vote to approve.
Joe DiGirolamo?
The design of the property lends itself to opening up airspace. It has a better visual look to it. They took in an older property and basically did knock it down and build a brand new, and they raised it. And I believe they made the improvements to keep some of the character of the property there. They did a lot of things of reducing bedrooms and doing other things that are, I think, are positive. And I think with working with Jim to be able to get the 5-foot stairwell, circular stairwell, if they do that and it gets and they go by for his approval, I don't have a problem with letting this go forward and approving it.
Mike Richmond?
So we have that ordinance for a reason, and I think it's a pretty good reason. And I really didn't hear enough testimony to change my mind about that. I think that I know everything's on a case-by-case basis, but I think that when you start approving things like this, it's going to open up a Pandora's box. So I'm going to vote no.
Application passes 4-3.
Chairman, members of the board, thank you for your time and have a good evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mike, will you please come sign?
Yeah.
Okay, our next case is Randy Stein, 103 South Pembroke Avenue, Block 16, Lot 2, in the S40 district, to grant a C variance relief for side yard setback, combined side yard setback, and possibly others. Taxes in order are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied.
Thank you, Board Chairman, Board members. My report is based on the application of Randall and Amy Stein at 103 South Pembroke Avenue, Block 16, Lot 2, in the S4 zone, AE elevation 11, and the effective firm, preliminary. The background is as follows. The applicant is seeking relief from the ordinances of the City of Margate in order to construct an addition to a single-family dwelling within the S40 zoning district. The addition consists of a full stairwell from the second floor to the third floor contained within the building, so it's interior. This addition requires a side yard variance and a combined side yard variance. So on page 1 and 2, you see the zoning chart, the documents reviewed, and the variances required in section 3 are side yard setback, whereas a minimum of 8 feet side yard setback is required, 1.3 feet exists and 1.3 feet is proposed. It's the vertical expansion of a nonconformity triggering the variance. Same thing for the combined side yard setback, whereas a minimum of 18.5 feet combined side yard setback is required, 14.9 feet exists and 14.9 feet is proposed. At this location, it causes a vertical expansion of a nonconformity. The waivers requested are similar to the ones before. Section 1.A, copy of an area map showing all lots within 200 feet of the property. Again, I kind of include that in my report. But my comments are as follows. A minimum side yard setback is not meeting the required vertical non-expansion. Same with the combined side yard setback. The waiver requested may be granted without any detriment. Section 4 is the or 6 is the recommendations. No street trees are required in this block. A grass governor strip should be included if it's not there already, but I turn the case over to the applicant.
Right? Thank you, Mr. McLaurin. Ladies and gentlemen, Eric Goldstein on behalf of the applicants, Randy and Amy Stein, who are sitting in the front row here. As Mr. McLaurin pointed out, this is the vertical expansion of an existing nonconformity with no change to the footprint of the house. In this particular case, the purposes of adding in this staircase, and I think all of you have in front of you some interesting pictures, are to make the steps that go from the second floor to the third floor less steep and easier to go up and down. We're not cramming in an additional bedroom. We're not trying to get something that we otherwise wouldn't be entitled to. It's basically an attempt to make the house more livable for the Steins. Either Randy or Amy will testify briefly as to what it's like now with the steps and what they believe it'll be like with the construction if the board sees fit to grant it. But just by way of background, and I think very important, as Mr. McLaurin pointed out, nothing by way of the footprint is going to change, and simply at one point of the house, there's going to be a vertical expansion along the already existing non-conformity for which there's nothing we can do. With that, I'd like to turn the microphone over to John Obelenis, and I'll have him sworn in as an architect licensed in New Jersey. Okay. Mr. Manos, I'll swear you in.
John, just state your name and address.
John Obelenis, 102 South 8th Street, Vineland, New Jersey.
You swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I will.
Thank you.
John, you're a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey, correct?
Yes, I am.
And you've testified before this board on many occasions in the past, correct?
I have.
Mr. Manos, if it pleases the board, without going into the details of Mr. Obelenis' qualifications, he be accepted by the board as an expert in the field of architecture.
Mr. Richmond is nodding yes. So
Okay,
yes, sorry.
thank you.
Okay, hold on a second. Go ahead.
Remy is left. She's
Not hearing the testimony.
Did she leave?
not here.
Oh, we'll wait. I'm not in a hurry.
All right, can we wait a couple
Yeah.
minutes?
Well, we have enough board members to go ahead without her.
Okay.
Or we can wait, but we
just-
need for the record that she's left the room during.
I don't mind waiting a second. We're here, so.
Excuse me? No, Remy
No,
left.
Remy
had to
left.
leave. I don't know
And
why.
for future reference, when an application starts, you can't leave and come back and then vote.
Okay, so
I don't
then
know
we're
when
just gonna
she,
go forward and she's not gonna.
I don't know when she walked out.
We'll wait just a minute if it's, I don't mind. I don't want to prejudice her by
Yeah,
not.
I mean, no testimony
We have
started.
plenty of voting members. We can move on with, and
Take a 2-minute,
At-
3-minute recess.
You're the 3-minute recess? Yeah, all right, so we're gonna do like a 3-minute recess.
Okay.
I'll keep the time. All right.
accounted for? Okay, go.
All right, we're back, and no testimony started yet. I think we
So-
just swore Mr. Oblenis in, and
That's correct. And just, John, if you wouldn't mind walking us through this particular renovation project that you've designed for the Steins. And if you don't mind, be pretty particular about the type of construction we're dealing with here. Obviously, the Steins wanted to be proactive, making sure that there wasn't any fire issues between the existing nonconformity and the vertical expansion, because we are pretty close to the house next door. So let's talk about the fire prevention stuff that we've discussed, as well as the need for Randy and Amy to have a more friendly staircase from the second to the third floor.
Thank you, Eric. Well, I think it's real simple. We have a second floor stair that accesses a third floor loft and a bathroom. It's one big open space, and the stair that's there now is not to code. It's not wide enough, the treads are not deep enough, there's headroom issues, and my client will attest to that. So technically, it's an illegal stair that's also located in a bedroom, and our goal is to create a safe access to that third floor level, which is what we're presenting tonight. And that offered just a couple of issues. One was the fire rating, because it's closer to the property line. We're a foot, 3 inches, or 1.3 inches away. You need at least 5 feet. And also, it's the headroom issue. I tried different versions of the dormer on top, because we were facing the Margate rule of 5 and 12 pitch for a roof. I couldn't fit a shed-type dormer, so I did a pitched roof for that particular design. And the fire rating, we're in the addition to from the second floor to the third, there's no windows. We're going to do a fire-rated wall because it's so close to the property line. So that'll be enclosed with rated materials.
And obviously, whatever fire ratings we need by Mr. Galantino's office, we're going to comply with to make sure that the distance between the house as expanded and the house directly next door will be proactive in keeping that. We can't do anything about the distance, but we can make sure that what's between the Stein residence and the outside wall will all be fire rated accordingly.
Correct.
And Mr. Galantino, to the extent something is granted, you'll certainly have the last say on whether or not the approval for construction occurs. That's correct. Okay. John, just talk about what is there now by way of the pitch and what will be there and how it will lessen the impact on the Steins. And then Randy or Amy can obviously add to that because they're living there anyway.
Well, again, I've been to the site. I measured the floor plans to design this new stairwell, and walking up, I guess I'm 6'4", and I think I banged my head on the stair going up to that third floor. So already I know it's not the right height. You need at least 80 inches from the nosing of the stair to the ceiling, and we don't conform with that. The width is not conforming; it's less than 3 feet. Your rise to your tread to your riser is steep. It starts to approach more of a ladder than a real stair. So it's a very awkward stair. In 3 different ways, it's a non-conforming stair. Again, in a private room. We're trying to create an access easier where we have the stair that's there now and simply extending it from that second floor up to the third floor using the existing structure, existing footprint, not going outside the building footprint, simply just an extension of the stair that's there now going up to the third floor safely, to code, with all the issues of headroom and width and stuff that would conform.
So just to sum up, if I may, it's safer. It's going to be safer from a fire perspective. It's going to eliminate a steep access from the second floor to the third floor. And we're not going outside of the footprint, and we're not creating any additional need for parking or something else that would trigger another variance. It's simply straight up on that one side with the dormer.
Yes, we're not adding any rooms, we're not adding something access from what's not there now. It's just simple stair.
Okay. And I guess it's fair to say that, but for the fact that the existing footprint is too close to the property line, if the existing footprint complied, this whole entire job would comply.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, we tried to conform to the side yard setback. It's 8 feet in this location, but that didn't work with the roof lines, so it was simply, from the beginning, we had to do that dormer addition to create enough headroom to get to that third floor.
Thank you. Unless the board has questions for Mr. Obelenis, you're here. Randy Stein would be sworn in. Mr. Manos.
Mr. Stein, just state your name and address. I'll swear you in.
Randy Stein, 929 Rock Creek Road in Winbar, with a home at 103 South Pembroke Avenue.
And you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thanks.
Yes. Randy, it's your house. You live there. Let's just tell the board why the change from what's there now to what is being proposed.
So I think my wife and I, we've been in that house for 20 years, and we've lived with that existing stair. We've raised young children. Rarely, when they were young, did they go up to the third floor because it was a bit dangerous when they were young. We're getting older. We had my mother-in-law down this summer. We got her up to the third floor. She almost came down from the third floor to the second floor, and that was it sort of opened our eyes that we need to do something. That's the reason we're here.
Now, you were here for a good part of the meeting. Heard a lot of people questions about trying to get something in that doesn't look like it's what we're trying to get in. This is not an attempt to do anything other than add in stairs, make them more comfortable to walk up and down, and we're not adding any additional space. There's no bedroom, nothing else is being changed other than the stairwell on the interior of the house, correct?
Correct.
And you heard Mr. Galantino when I spoke to him and Mr. Obelenis, you're gonna be very proactive in making sure that whatever construction occurs on that side of the house where it's required to be of the correct fire rating, so that in the event of the tragedy there was a fire, nothing would jump from your house to the neighboring house, correct?
Correct.
Unless the board has any
Yeah.
questions.
Are you planning on making it a bedroom?
It's an open loft space. There are beds up there. There've always been beds up there. There's a bathroom up there. It's sort
Yeah,
of-
yeah, it's a full bath.
Yeah, it's a hangout area really at this point. And yes, my kids like to sleep up there now.
For the children, right?
Excuse me?
For the children. You're putting the children, they're older now.
They're older now.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're older now.
And Mr. Obeletis, what, do you know what the rise is on these steps that are existing? Is that anywhere?
I believe it's more, it's higher than the 8 1/4 that's required. 8 1/4 is the maximum.
Is 8 5/8
Yeah,
the
just,
max, Jim?
Randy, hand John the record, we have a good record here.
It's more than 8 1/4, you
I
think?
believe it's more than 8 1/4, because I remember walking up it, it's like walking up a ladder.
I mean, you can just tell the way they are, they gotta be totally unsafe, illegal, whatever. That's, you know, I mean, I don't
Yeah,
know
just
how
ask if they
you
had
dealt with it
anything.
for so long, to be honest with you. but-
Youth, you know, it's a lot easier. When Randy and I spoke the first time, he said, listen, we've dealt with it because we could. Now we're getting to the point where we can't, so that's why we're here. I suppose if there was a problem earlier, we would have come in earlier, so, yeah.
John, where is the existing stair?
On the plan, it's on the third floor plan, there's a dotted line where we're gonna remove it. And it comes up and there's gonna be a closet put in its place. We're gonna take over that, we're gonna lose that floor area and dedicate the end of the stair to a closet, at least in this plan here.
Any other questions from?
Can you go to the exterior?
So on the exterior, we show the addition as rendered. You know, it shows a roof, shingles, siding, so that piece of it is the addition for the stair. Everything else that's white is existing condition.
Did you consider hipping the end of the roof instead of gabling at the end of the new stair tower?
You like clipping it?
Yeah. Hipping it, it
You know,
would reduce the impact of,
Yeah, I considered a shed roof at one time, but it didn't meet the 5 and 12 pitch to get the headroom on the inside, but we can consider a hip roof, yes.
If we had the headroom, Ms. Wesleski, I mean, the obvious answer there is, we didn't want to add an additional variance with the roof pitch.
it's no variance.
If the pitch was, I thought John said that the pitch.
No, I think the pitch for the whole roof, but I think that what Clem is saying, that if we just clip the edge, like to create like a little hip roof instead of a gable, that won't affect, that shouldn't affect the headroom.
It wouldn't affect anything, except it would lessen the visual impact of this. Because it is kind of
You have any problem with that? No.
a
You
wart
okay with that?
side of the building.
Okay.
You match existing pitch?
Just trying to visually
No,
down.
that's fine. We're okay.
Okay, good. Anybody
you,
else
Clyde.
from the board?
That's fine.
Make a motion, condition?
Anybody from the public like to speak? Are we okay? You guys okay?
We're fine,
All right,
yes.
good. All right, public portion's closed. We'll make a,
Sure. Need a motion for C variance relief for side yard setback of 1.3 feet where 8 feet was required, and a combined side yard setback of 14.9 feet where 18.5 feet is required. The conditions will be they'll clip off part of that roof to make it a hip roof, and all other conditions set forth in Mr. McCarn's report of October 22nd, 2018, and any representations made during the course of the hearing.
That's
Make a motion.
acceptable. I'm sorry.
Second?
Clem Wazleski?
Obviously, these folks have a problem with access to their third floor. And I can speak from personal experience, the older you get, the bigger the problem stairs are. So I think this is quite a reasonable approach. I approve it.
Jim Galantino?
It's a shame when they converted the attic, they didn't do the staircase, because that would have fitted, they could have fitted in there nicely. But I don't have a problem with making it more code compliant. I approve the case.
Craig Palmisano?
I also approve this. It's minimus. The existing nonconformities go straight up. I approve.
Despina Hess?
I also approve the application for all the reasons already stated.
Remy Pelosi?
I approve also for the reasons previously stated.
Joe DiGirolamo?
I approve the applications for reasons previously stated by other members.
Mike Richmond?
I don't see any detriment to the neighborhood, and I approve the application.
Application passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Okay. Everybody okay, board-wise? Anybody else need a break? We're all good? Okay.
Sorry.
All right, so the next case is Aline Inselman?
Yes.
Okay, great. 3 North Granville Avenue, Block 208, Lot 15, in the S25 district to grant a C variance for relief for side yard, rear yard setback to building, rear yard deck setback, landscape area, AC unit setback, and possibly others. Taxes and water are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied.
Thank you, Board Chairman, Board members. My report is in regard to the application of Eileen Inselman, 3 North Granville Avenue, Block 208, Lot 15, in the S25 zone. And they're in a FEMA effective firm AE Elevation 10. They're seeking C variances. This is a planning and zoning report. And this is a substantial benefit variance. Background is as follows. The applicant is seeking relief from the ordinances of the City of Margate in order to construct 2 separate additions to a habitable area, add a side yard deck, add a rear yard deck, and reduce the size of a garage. Several variances are required as described below. Again, you'll see my zoning chart highlighted with the variances. Page 3 indicates the documents reviewed, and the variances required are as follows. Rear yard setback for the deck over 18 inches, whereas 13.52 feet is the minimum rear yard setback, and 7.39 feet is proposed, requiring a variance. Rear yard setback for the building, whereas 13.52 feet is the minimum rear yard setback, and 10.39 feet exists and is proposed, requiring a variance. Again, you're infilling in the expansion of a non-conforming condition. Minimum side yard setback, whereas 5 feet is the minimum side yard setback, 5.07 feet exists and 2.93 feet is proposed, requiring a variance. Landscape area, whereas 35% is a minimum lot coverage required to be landscaped with vegetative cover, and much less than 35% exists. It was never calculated, so I can just tell by the plans that it doesn't meet, and it's going to be made in a more non-conforming issue. Variance number 5 is minimum side yard setback for the mechanical equipment for the AC units, whereas 5 feet is the minimum side yard setback. More than 5 feet exists, and 2 feet plus or minus is proposed, requiring a variance. Waiver is requested from the checklist. 1A, copy of an area map showing all lots within 200 feet of the property. Comments are as follows. The rear yard setback to the deck could be avoided by reducing the size and just allow for a landing. It's a very small deck.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So to make that, change that from a deck to a landing, all you, will
Just shave off the side.
just shave off the side, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
Really not usable.
right.
The proposed deck covers existing concrete, and I guess I'm just demonstrating that deck is not covering existing landscaping. The rear yard setback variance to the rear of the building actually is required at 2 different locations. The smaller addition covers existing concrete, and the larger addition covers mostly grass area. Again, just an example of how you're reducing the landscape coverage by these additions. The side yard setback variance is for the smaller addition and goes from 5.07 to 2.93 feet to match the adjacent existing setback. This is along the side. The zoning chart provided by the architect indicates no change, which is not accurate. I went by the survey provided. The existing landscaping does not meet the required minimum area and is being further reduced by one of the additions and the side yard deck being proposed. The landscape area being removed could be mitigated by removing some of the concrete that seems to be excessive on the property along the one side and perhaps in the rear. The landscape calculations have not been provided and the errors are estimated. I would recommend that these calculations be provided as a condition of approval. The air conditioning unit is being moved to a location that requires a variance. There is no reason why this can't be relocated to an area further away from the neighbor's property to meet the setback requirement, as the neighbor's house is very close to the property line. The existing building has a converted porch in the living space and now wants 2 decks or porches added. The garage is being reduced in size, and the applicant shall provide testimony where all the storage of trash cans, lawn furniture, etc. will be, while the garage is being counted as a parking space as per the architect. If the garage is being used for storage and no new bedrooms are being added, then the parking would be an existing nonconformity. No street trees exist at this time. The garage is being reduced to comply with the 3-foot separation requirement that we passed in the new ordinance. The zoning chart needs to be corrected in regard to the existing setbacks and landscape coverage. Needs to be provided. The property improvements are subject to the 50% improvement rule for an aggregate of 7 years, and Jimmy will follow up with that during the permitting phase, but we'd like to mention it now. The zoning chart indicates an allowable building height of 32 feet above existing curb, and that is incorrect. Should be removed from the zoning chart. Recommendations are as follows in my report, as you can read, and the applicant has read them, and I defer to the applicant at this point in time.
Thank you, Mr. McLaurin. Ladies and gentlemen, Eric Olson on behalf of the applicant, Eileen, and also Mark Inselman. As Mr. McLaurin points out, this application is to basically square off the existing house and fill in areas that are kind of jutted back from the setbacks, and the construction, while it won't increase the existing nonconformities, it will add to them, which is why we're here. With me tonight, the Inselmans, as well as Tom Baglivo, who will begin by testifying and addressing the issues in Mr. McLaurin's report, and obviously the Inselmans will talk about what their intended use of the property is, ultimately to make that their full-time residence, and for them to make their master bedroom on the first floor. So with that, I just would like Mr. Baglivo to be sworn in. Mr. Manos, please.
Mr. Bagley, just state your name and address for the record, and I'll swear you in.
Sure. Tom Baglivo, 301 East Germantown Pike, East Norriton, PA.
And you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth? Thanks.
Tom, you're a licensed architect from the state of New Jersey, correct?
Correct.
And you prepared and submitted the plans which the board has in front of them this evening, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now that Mr. Manos has sworn you in, I know you've testified here on numerous occasions. I would ask the board to accept him as an expert in the field of architecture, Mr. Manos and Mr. Richmond.
Yes.
Okay. Tom, if you would, just walk us through the plan, your design for the house, and how this fill-in of those empty spots, even though it triggers a variance, in our opinion, it's de minimis based upon what's there now and what will ultimately be built.
When I first met with the Inselmans, we talked about getting a bedroom on the first floor and potentially adding on to the third floor. But the amount of construction to add on the third floor was cost prohibitive and didn't really gain them what they're trying to achieve. In a few years from now, they'd like to move their bedroom or live in the house as a private residence. So what we did is we squared off the back left corner and we squared off the back right-hand corner, and we're going to reduce the width of the garage so that we have access completely around the home. The total addition in both sections equals 100 square feet of addition, including the wall thickness, so it's really less than 100 square feet. We're taking the kitchen and putting it on the rear of the house because it's more appropriate to have a window back to the yard. And we have a small bedroom here, and the laundry room currently is way down at grade, so we're bringing the laundry room up, making it a bedroom, and putting everything up at the main level. The existing back addition, which is dotted in on the lower left, drawing 3, is a small addition that doesn't have, it has a roof pitch of less 512. So the new addition, we're gonna match the current house, which is about a 6'12" pitch. And the deck off the back wasn't meant to be a deck, it was meant to just be a landing off the door. A landing for the door. So what we reallocated was the functions that were in the old laundry room down at grade, we brought them up and made a little laundry room off the kitchen. Moved the kitchen to the other side of the dining room so we had more of a living area, and then tucked their bedroom in where the old kitchen was. And then we filled in the back corner for the bathroom, and neither of the additions are going beyond the existing nonconformity on the side yard or the rear yard. And we will provide landscape calculations as required.
Well, let's just focus on what you said before, which I think is very important. Neither of the additions will go beyond the existing nonconformities, correct?
Correct.
So we're really just taking an area that's not, as I put it before, squared off, and squaring that off so that although we're adding additional space. Mr. Richmond, I see Mr. Galantino and Mr. McLaurin. I don't want to continue if they're, I'll wait for them.
They can hear you.
You sure?
You can keep going.
Okay.
Are you okay?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Keep going,
okay.
buddy.
All right.
Does the board have any questions for Mr. Baglivo?
I have a couple questions. Well, not quite, but, so we got 5 variances here, right? So, that's a lot of variances. Okay, so as far as the AC platform, I mean, I've done this more than a few times. Why not put the AC platform on top of the outside shower? Would that be a problem?
If you move, get rid of the deck, you can.
Not sure we have enough room, it might, because we gotta get it would probably encroach above the roof line. I mean, if,
Okay. Well, you know, so the other thing you could do, I think you'd have enough room if you did what Mr. McLaren talked about and took that, I don't know how, that looks like 3 or 4 feet there, took that chunk of rear deck away and just made that a landing, then you could slide everything over and you would be able to,
That
you know,
variance goes away for the deck.
you would make
let
your,
me move everything towards the door.
just chop off
Take the
that,
deck, you make it a
Yeah.
landing.
Yeah, but we
that
didn't
variance
get to
goes
that
away.
deck yet, yeah. I mean, if we just went straight up
right.
and just made the stairs wider than the door, 4 feet, just so it's nice and
Yeah,
clear.
and then you would eliminate 2 variances. You'd have your, the HVAC would be in conformity, right? And
The applicants, Mr. Richmond, are one step ahead. They're okay with that.
They're okay with
Yeah.
that?
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
Okay.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, you'll have access to walk out the door. We just put a little spot to, you know.
Well, let's,
Yeah.
so the record's clear, because you want us to make a record here. Let's let Tom finish, and then we're going to have you testify. But thank you. So to answer your question, Mr. Richmond, the applicants are okay with that change as proposed by Mr. McLaurin.
Okay, great.
Okay.
That's all I got. Anybody else?
You do have to be aware that we don't want it, substantial improvement to 50%.
We are going to have to figure that out, Mr. Galantino, during the construction process. We're aware.
Just, the flood certificate, was that in your package?
I get it.
The top and the bottom floor is 7.53 NGVD 29, so it's actually just around a little over 6 foot as the rated floor.
It's got to be the heater room. What's the lowest adjacent grade?
The heater room's way down.
Yeah, lowest adjacent grade 6 or 6, 9?
6.63.
Yeah, they rated the house off the heater room.
It was right off the lowest elevation, right?
It may be
Yes.
helpful, just by way of testimony for one of the, because they can explain that's going to actually be raised up as part of the project as well,
Okay.
So the top of the next highest floor is 8.01. I guess that's the one you're matching?
I guess.
That,
that 88?
that should be the first floor.
Right.
Who wants to talk? All right. Eileen? Mr. Manos, may I please have Eileen Inselman sworn in?
Sure, just state your name and address for the record, please.
Eileen Inselman, 229 Hadley Drive, Cherry Hill, and also my property, 3 North Granville in Margate, New Jersey.
And you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Eileen, thank you for coming. I know it's been a long night.
It's
for all
okay.
of us. We're almost
It's
done.
okay.
So you heard the board, had some suggestions, obviously you agreed with.
Yeah.
Kind of talk us and walk us through, I know Tom took us to the technical stuff, but your personal desire to change the house, why, and what you're hoping to accomplish.
Sure. This house has been, I've lived in for 43 years. And so I was raised there, my kids were raised there, grandchildren come there, and now Mark and I are at the point in our life where we're looking to make it our primary residence very near in the future. And there were just certain things in the house that need to be kind of changed, refined, whatever, to make it a bit more comfortable for us. We're in the future, we can see it. As we were saying with steps, you get older, it gets harder. That's why we were thinking, let's do the first floor bedroom and bath there, because we anticipate as we age that, and we're going to move there, that's important to us.
So just stop for a second. What you're saying, if I understand you, I'm making the words clear, that first floor bedroom will be your primary
That will be our our primary bedroom, yes. And then taking away the kitchen there, obviously I had to find a way to get myself a workable cooking kitchen. And so that's why we were flipping it there. And we really, we're trying to keep the charm of the house. The house is an older house, and we've renovated it and we've upgraded it and we've maintained it over the years. And we like the charm of it. We like keeping some of the older homes in Margate and just improving upon them, doing what we have to do. So that's our reason for really doing it, just to make it a bit more livable as a year-round residence. We're not looking to really change anything else, and hopefully become full-time part of the Margate community. That's it. Okay?
Oh, does the board have any questions for Mrs. Ixable?
No, Mr. Bagliford.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Richmond, did you have a question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I got a question for Jim, and this, I still don't totally understand how the whole flood thing works, but even if all the improvements don't equal the 50%, do the additions have to be raised, or is that, you know what I'm saying?
If it's a non-structural lateral addition, it can be built at the base flood elevation of the structure.
Of the structure, okay.
But if
So
it
if they
exceed-
brought these plans into you, and it was under the 50% rule, it would go through?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So I believe that to be the case too, so, thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
As far as the garage, I like the 3 foot that you're going to have next to the garage. But I think that's only going to, what is your wall going to be? Is it block wall in the garage? Block?
It's framed.
The current garage is framed,
Right.
and we were just
Frame?
moving it over. What had happened was, we were gonna leave it the way it was, but it felt too tight.
My concern is you only have a foot inside from the jamb of the door. You only have a foot inside to the wall,
In the garage.
in the garage. So I don't know how you're going to open the car door when you get the car in the garage.
Well, we have a clear dimension of.
8 foot on the front door, on the door of the garage is 8 foot.
Right, and the actual garage is 10.8 to the outside, so it's about 9.10 clear inside.
Yeah, I did a lot of measuring there today and last week, and I just think you're going to have 1 foot inside the garage to open a car
Well,
door.
we originally wanted to attach
Well, not
it.
one side, on the left side of the garage.
Right, I mean, they'd almost rather have it attached, and then you wouldn't, because otherwise, if we don't attach it, you only have an 18-inch walkway, and that's not safe.
What do you mean attached? What?
If we left it completely how it was now, there would only be a little 18-inch walkway.
Oh, I know, that's no good.
Right, so we were going to just close it off, make the garage a little bit bigger, but then I got a setback problem even worse, because now the garage is attached, now I meet all different setbacks. So that's the reason we did that.
You're not changing the door jamb, like moving the door over more?
No.
No, you're not changing the door at all?
No.
And it's interesting, Mr. Baglivo said, if the garage becomes an attached garage, then
Yeah.
it's more practical, but we're looking at different variances.
But the way it is here is, if you back the car and you'd be able to get out of the driver's door.
Craig, I know what you're saying, but you can build it, it's legal to build a garage 10 feet wide. So that's even less than what you would have. Yeah, you can do that legally, so.
I was more
Okay.
concerned about little kids
Roger?
trying to run through an 18-inch,
Yeah. No, 10 foot outside.
10-foot outside with 2 by
Yeah,
6.
that's a legal garage, 10 foot outside.
Right, 9 feet wide.
you say 10 foot, what's that mean? Like one deep or across?
Left to right.
Across,
Across.
yeah,
The inside dimension has to be at least 9 by 18.
right.
Look, and I understand what Craig's saying. Practically speaking, if
Yeah.
you're at the minimum, when you swing the door open, it's an issue, but that's their issue. It's a
I'm
legal
afraid that the
spot.
garage doesn't get used as a car. That's my
That's
point.
possible everywhere. We know that always happens, that you get a spot and it,
The
but,
opening's legal, so we're good.
exactly, it's a legal spot, right.
Anybody else have any questions from the board?
The listing on the drawings, under bedrooms, it says 3 existing, 3 proposed.
Microphone.
That was a typo. It's
Yeah, that's-
four.
it's-
It's maintaining the same.
Correct.
Wait, we're adding a bedroom
Adding
downstairs.
one.
We're adding one bedroom, we're taking one away. No, I'm sorry?
No, we're just adding one.
Yeah, not according to
I'm sorry.
My fault.
3 existing, 4 proposed. Not 4 total, not 4,
4 proposed.
Correct.
Yeah, total same thing.
So you still meet the parking requirement.
correct.
So you need 4 parking, or 3 parking places.
Right.
2.5, I'd like to see the half a car.
Although the ordinance rounds down, but we have enough parking.
But
anyway.
the garage, by these dimensions, you're probably not gonna have 18 feet inside, you're gonna be a few inches short. That's overall outside. Take off 4.5.
It's 18.7.
It's just gonna be a couple inches.
Take 8 inches. We're gonna be right at 18.
Roger, because it's an existing garage, is it still qualified, even though it's a couple inches shy?
Yes.
Okay. In case you needed another variance, I wanted to
Got it.
clarify. Where is the heating equipment going?
It's in the attic now.
You can-
The condenser's outside.
you know more about the house than I do.
Yeah, but I didn't see any
Yeah, our heating,
furnace, boiler.
our heating unit is up in the attic.
Okay, great.
Make sure the piping's well insulated.
Eric, just to the
He goes
applicant's
up and changes.
benefit here, we talked about, Mr. Baglivo explained to us, really, it's truly only a 100 square foot addition that we're adding onto the property, and that doesn't really even take into account what you took away bulk from the garage, does it? So the effect is actually a little bit less.
It's very minimal. And in designing the house, just, we always talk about what the board can do to help the applicants, and what the applicants can do to help the board. In this case, what they really did is try to design it, knowing they needed variance, to have literally, the smallest impact possible, but it does need variances. I mean, there's no question it needs them, but they could have gone in for a much more obnoxious would be the wrong word, but a much more intense. And I know the board's always concerned about what the applicants are doing, and sometimes they push it too far. I think there was a balance that was struck here of, let's not go nuts, but let's get what we need to keep, ourselves happy and to have a house that we can live in, for the duration.
Anybody else from the board? No? Okay, anybody from the public? Public portion's closed.
Jim, this is not a zoning issue, but would you recommend them adding flood vents?
Absolutely. Flood vents are better.
We have vents in there now, but yes, we certainly have flood vents.
I'll do the calculation to make sure it's 200 square feet per vent. Make sure you have enough.
So the rear yard deck's gonna be converted into, the rear deck's gonna convert to a landing, so that variance goes away. Is that,
Then you can slide everything over, and you don't need a variance for the AC unit.
they'll be able to meet that then? Okay.
What about the mitigation for landscaping?
What can we take out?
You want me to jump in, Eric?
Yeah, sure.
When the current addition, the larger piece of the 100 square feet is over a combination of pavers and some grass, but I think 50/50. But when we go to dig, or when the contractor goes to dig it up, whatever pavers come out, we could put that back in as grass. So I did a quick calculation after Roger's email. We currently have about 315 square feet. If we took the pavers up, put the addition down in the backyard, we could add another 130 without, jackhammering half the concrete up. So it gets us about halfway to, that would get us about 445 square feet. So we're at least getting closer to the minimum. We're about halfway to the minimum, if that's appealing to the board.
I think if they just, whatever they're displacing, they replace, I think the board would be happy with that. I don't think we're asking you to comply.
The applicants are not, they'll comply with that condition, Mr. McLaren.
Okay.
I'll provide the calculation, because there are a lot of pavers back there that count as solid. So we'll pull those up and do a grass calculation.
I'm going by the survey, it shows that area being grass, so,
Yeah, the two pie shapes in the back?
yes.
Yeah, so whatever the net is of those, we won't go any less.
And the deck on the side.
But if you see all the the hatching in the back, that's all pavers. So a lot of that can come up and become grass.
Okay.
Because what you're looking at is the white is the grass.
Right.
And I'm agreeing with that. We'll take some of that hatching in the back and make it grass. Once they dig up for the foundation, we're gonna lose most of that anyway. So we can make that whole back section grass. And just leave the concrete on the side that we can't really get to. If that's acceptable.
Someone needs to make a motion for C variance relief for a side yard setback of 2.93 feet, where 5 feet's required. I skipped the rear yard setback to the building, where 10.39 feet is proposed, where 13.52 feet is required, and a land... 10.39 is proposed, where 13.52 is required. Is that correct?
Yes.
And a landscape area variance of where 35% is the minimum required. They're below that, and we're going to address that with the conditions.
So that actually won't be a variance, they're just going to mitigate the difference.
Correct. Okay, so, correct. And then there's a waiver from the area map showing all properties within 200 feet. The conditions will be, they're going to make the rear deck a landing and slide over the HVAC equipment, which will eliminate the two initially proposed variances of a rear yard setback for the deck and the HVAC side yard setback variance. The applicant will install flood vents, and the applicant will mitigate the difference with any landscaping that's displaced. They'll replace, and they'll comply with all other conditions made during the course of the hearing and anything else in Mr. McLaren's report of October 23rd, 2018.
So we're down to 2 variances.
2 variances, correct. That would be rear yard setback to building and side yard setback.
I make a motion.
Second. Clem Osleski.
Well, nice to see another older home being preserved and made more livable. I certainly appreciate the situation with putting the master bedroom on the first floor. I've designed 3 houses for myself, and the master bedroom's been on the first floor every time. I wouldn't have it any other way. I approve the project.
Jim Galantino.
I agree with Clem. I vote yes.
Craig Palmisano.
I also agree with Clem. Vote yes.
Despina Hess.
I'm also going to vote in favor of the application. I think this is a case where you have a lot of variances with a more modest impact, while some variances, other applications may appear small in number, but they have a very great impact. So on its face, certainly it might look significant, but it's not to say the impact on the neighbors wasn't considered. This is a dense area, but the ones I was most worried about was that HVAC, the applicant was very agreeable with making the changes, and, Mr. Baglivo made a great point. I think, when you see that 100 square feet, and that's including the wall thickness, and you didn't even take into account the amount that you shaved off of the garage. So, for all those reasons, and I love the fact that you're maintaining a old home, 23 feet height, that's wonderful. For all those reasons, I vote in favor of the application.
Remy Pelosi.
I commend you from going down to just 2 variances, coming in with 5. And I do appreciate you maintaining an older Margate home. And for the other reasons stated by the board members, I approve as well.
Joe DiGirolamo,
I agree with all the other board members and approve.
Mike Richmond.
Yeah, I really think it's a very limited de minimis impact on the neighborhood, and I'm going to approve it.
Application passes 7-0.
Thank you.
So, is this,
Thank you.
Thank you.
what's this last?
We just got,
Extension? Okay. All right, so we got one more to go?
To me, it's like a bird in the.
Yeah, it's for
okay, so this will be
9707 Amherst Marina.
This is for them. Do I just sign one?
All right, ready? Oh, sorry.
uh,
Hey, I'm the boss tonight.
I know Mr. McLarnon on 9707 Amherst Marina. Mr. McLarnon gave me a letter, which Joanna took away from me as I was walking out of City Hall, so I no longer have it. But this applicant's, I believe, requesting a 1-year extension of a final site plan approval.
12-month extension, it's Lamberti's, yes.
So that'll go from, looks like the expiration looks like it's December 22nd, 2018, because...
So it was my recommendation, they're still getting their financing in place to come in front of the board or submit a letter requesting a 12-month extension. They asked for 6, I said, just ask for 12.
And that'll take them to December 22nd, 2019. So someone needs to make that motion to grant that 1-year extension.
I'll second that motion.
Clem Wozleski,
Yes on the motion.
Rich Patterson. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hell no!
Jim Galantino. Oh, gosh. Craig Palmisano.
Yes.
Despina Hess.
Yes.
Remy Pelosi. Joe DiGirolamo.
Yes.
Mike Richmond.
Yes.
Application has its extension for 1 year, 7-0.
Good job.
All right. Anything else?
Yeah.
Is there any public participation? Seeing that there is non-public closed, is there any other business?
No.
Seeing there is none, may I have a motion to close the meeting?
Motion, second.
All
All
in favor? Opposed?
Adios.
Meeting's adjourned.
Half the important stuff, greenhouse?